Fellow Falcoholics, what is up? Welcome to episode 304 of the Falcoholic Live. I'm your host, Kevin Knight, at Falcoholic Kevin on the Twitters, joined by two tremendous fellow Falcoholics tonight. Of course, have my co-host for the Wednesday show. He is Adnan Ikic at Say Which Way. Adnan, how are we doing on this fine Wednesday evening?
Good. You know, the Falcons have met our expectations so far. So, before the season we said 3-2, and here we are. 3-2, and even better than we expected because they're 3-0 in the NFC. We thought that win would be against the Steelers. So, it's life is good right now because, I woke up. I even said in the Discord this morning, like I can't wait to watch the Falcons again. It's been so long since I've been counting down the days with excitement instead of dread. Because in the past 6 years, into October, September is always exciting, but into October, it's always like, how are they gonna embarrass us again this weekend? But now it's like, you know what? We got a team right now. I haven't felt this way since 2016.
Yeah, no, it's a nice sensation because the Falcons last year had sort of blips of competence, sort of little cookie crumbs that we could chase and try to follow off into the wilderness, and they didn't lead us anywhere good. They led us straight into the fable of I'm forgetting Hans. Whatever, you guys know the guy I'm talking about, the guy that wrote all the fables. I'm blanking on the name now. That it was like a nightmare situation where you followed the cookie crumbs to some witch's lair or something at the end of the day.
Or am I off base?
Isn't it like Hans Christian Andersen or something? Didn't he write a bunch of fables? Or I don't know.
Y'all aren't getting help from me on fables.
Yeah, no, whatever. Yeah. So stay tuned for the Fable podcast coming next summer. But
that's for day 3 of the draft show.
So we get deep into the fourth quarter of the preseason game. Then we start talking. We'll get you the answer. Hansel and Gretel. Thank you, Mad Tom K, for that one. But yeah, we're working through it. It seems like the cookie crumbs may lead us somewhere good this year, but still got a long way to go. To help us get some more clarity on that, we have the co-host of the Tuesday show, Tre'Shon Diaz at Tre'Shon. Tre'Shon, thanks for joining us. No Tuesday show this week because I was stuck in traffic, but happy to have you on tonight.
Yeah, no, happy to be here. Glad that I can join the Wednesday show. Like Adnan was saying, it was almost like we were just kind of like, you know what? Do we need to do the Tuesday show? I think everybody knows. Look at it. We're 3-0. We're in the NFC, 2-0 in the division. And now I know what we're going to get into today, talking about maybe going 3-0 in the division. So, like Adnan said, life is good right now. Reality usually hits the first week of October in terms of what this team is and is going to be. And right now, the sky's the limit. So it's been a while.
No, it's nice to see. It's a good situation to be in, and we're going to break it down and also get into how the Falcons can sort of earn our trust by doing the one thing that they haven't had a chance to do yet, which is now that they're in the driver's seat, can they just take care of business in a big spot? They have matchup with the Panthers coming, a team that on paper is the worst team in the NFL. They did get that little Andy Dalton boost for a week or two. That's has seemingly worn off. The Panthers are one of the most injured. Yeah, me too. If this was the week they were pulling Bryce Young, that would have been terrible. But thankfully, we don't have to deal with that. Instead, we get a Panthers team that has just been absolutely ravaged by injury, but also just isn't good, even when they're healthy. So this is an opportunity now for the Falcons to take care of business for the first time this year against, an inferior team in the driver's seat. They haven't had a chance to do this yet. We haven't seen them respond. Again, this was another game that we would sort of feel good about in the Arthur Smith era, and then they would just blow it. So another opportunity for this team to sort of earn the trust of us and you and the NFL as a whole by not blowing it against the Panthers. We're going to take a more positive tack to that, more about, the first place talk, but it is an important game. It's a division game. It's a critical game. You got there's not going to be a lot of gimmies on the schedule. And, going up against the Panthers, it's not exactly a gimme because it's a division opponent. So you're going to have to be able to find a way to get it done. But before we dive in, real quick, I want to bring you guys a word from our sponsor, of course, BetOnline, folks. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. And this game, I usually say don't bet on the Falcons, and that is always true. But this game, if you wanted to do it, probably one of the safer opportunities to do so. The spread is probably going to be dangerous in this one. I think the Falcons are like pretty heavy favorites. So, given that the Falcons win all their games by one score, I would probably be careful about that one. Maybe just bet the money line, for the Falcons. Just go with A-Town on that one. But no matter what you want to bet on, BetOnline's got every stat, every matchup, even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. And if you think you know your stuff, BetOnline's got a new $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread. It's every single week that happens, and you can do that. Take part in that for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of that $200,000 grand prize. And when the game's over, head on over. BetOnline's got a new online casino. They got blackjack, poker, over 150 different slots games. So head to that website today. It's betonline.ag to get in on the action. Make sure when you sign up to use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to get in on the action. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right. So we're gonna start this off, by talking about some positive things, like the injury report today. Yes, there were some people limited, and Troy Anderson's still not practicing, but Nate Lamman designated to return off IR, as we were sort of hoping, and practiced for the first time since being placed on IR and was limited today, which does potentially put a return in play for week 6 here. Adnan, what do you think about how the injury report's looking, and do you have any hope for seeing Nate Lamman back this weekend?
Yep, fantastic. Look, it's the NFL. Every single team is banged up. Every single team is bruised. Every single team has, players who are going through it right now. I think an old player said at one point a few years ago, everyone's playing hurt by week 14 or something. So yeah, everyone's hurt right now, but outside of Drew Dahlman, with Nate Lamman coming back and possibly with Troy Anderson being there, outside of Drew Dahlman, you could not really ask for, anything better if you're the Falcons. Had you told me at the beginning of the season we were going to be here on October 9th and our injuries are going to be, possibly just one starter missing the week 5 game, we would all sign up for it. So the Falcons, I feel, have been honestly very fortunate when it comes to the injury front overall. Thus far, look at teams like the Chiefs. That they have skill position players going down, week in and week out at this point. But Nate Lamman, I'm very confident in him coming back because today is a Wednesday, and the Wednesday practice report is normally the one where sometimes the veterans are resting. It's the one that's the least important out of the 3. And the fact that Nate Lamman, even got in a limited practice today is a really good sign for his availability this week. And if not this week, then probably next week. He had a calf injury. That's one of those where it makes sense that he's going to go on IR because, with calves, you can't really do anything but wait. And yeah, around a month or so, that's around how long it does take for it, to recover to the point where you can play. We saw it with, I think it was Deebo Samuel, was it last year, where he was out for 3 or 4 weeks with a calf strain. The 49ers straight up lied to everyone this year and said CMC had one and he was going to be back by week 1. But, that's right for people with the number 1 overall pick in their fantasy leagues to take up with.
You want to know a funny story about that? A little tangent. My CMC team is number 1 in the league. It's just I have no idea how I threaded the needle of taking CMC first overall and also just managing to, because I had Jordan Mason, so obviously that helps. But Mason's been okay. But yeah, just I feel like it's just a goddamn miracle that somehow that team is killing it. So now Nico Collins is out on that team, so that's gonna be a problem. I'm sure
it's all doing better than your Falcoholic Patreon league team.
That one team is I have 7 teams, and that team is the only one that's bad. Every other team is 500 or better. So that all the bad juju went on that one team. So,
as far as I can see, that's the only one I can see, and
yeah, that's the only one that matters. I gotta
Yeah.
claw my way back. I can't.
I'm 5-0 the top scorer in that one, so that's the most important one. But yeah, overall injury report amazing. Really like what I'm seeing. Really hoping Nate Lamman can be back this week. If he's not back this week, I'd be shocked if he wasn't back next week, barring some setback. Troy Anderson, though, we'll see. He missed practice today. It's going to be very important to monitor the report over the next 2 days. But thumbs up on the injury report. I'm really, really happy with what I'm seeing there. Look at the Panthers on the other end. There is no way that they're happy with theirs.
Yeah. No, I mean I think it's about as good as you can hope, and we'll see. The Falcons have been pretty willing to rest guys, especially early in the week. So we'll see if Trey Anderson can improve at all. But yeah, what do you think, Tre'Shon, about the state of this injury report, and particularly the linebackers?
Yeah, it's good to see, they open the 21-day window, so they got to get Lamman ramped back up. So seeing him practicing today is a good sign. He's kind of somebody that, needs to be practicing Wednesday if he does want to be able to be full go and get ready for that. So, and he's dealing with a quad injury on top of the calf injury as well, too. And that quad's been bugging him since about mid-August. So, just kind of knowing that he's gotten to get more time coming off IR, I think it's a really good step. Hoping he plays because, I'm iffy on if Troy is going to make it. I think tomorrow and then Friday, obviously, are going to say more because, like Adnan says, there's no point in making Troy practice right now if it really isn't a situation that needs to put him on IR. Giving him a little bit of extra rest probably doesn't really signal anything in terms of his availability just yet. So pretty happy with what we saw. And, I think it's a positive step for Nate Lamman making his return because, I think the defense needs his return right now.
Yeah, no, obviously, Nate Lamman. I mean, it seems like the entire run defense took a massive hit when Lamman went out. So if he could, obviously, if he's able to come back, even if Troy Anderson has to miss some time, then that will help with the depth there. I think expecting Lamman to immediately go all the way back to full time starting is probably not realistic this week. But could he play 20, 30 snaps, help out in the rotation, especially in those run heavy situations? The Panthers have been trying to run the ball a lot, so
they've been doing a good job too, honestly, all things considered.
So
the only consistent player right now is Chuba Hubbard on offense,
right? So I mean, it's nice. It would be nice to have Nate Lamman back in the lineup to help with that. So we'll see. Hopefully he can come back, and then obviously we're being cautious probably with Troy Anderson. I would expect the team's not going to rush him back. Again, it seems like a pain management thing. So we'll have to see how it looks and how it's going. But, I think we're still sort of waiting to see on Troy and how he progresses throughout the week. The other injuries, I know they have several guys on there. I don't think any of those are concerning. Those are probably maintenance type things. The Falcons have routinely listed guys as limited for a couple days and then put them back to full. No question. So, I think right now the injury reports.
I don't think I saw Bijan Robinson on there today. Bijan is someone who has been dealing with some bumps and bruises the last couple of weeks. I think he missed a Thursday practice leading up to that Saints game, and he's someone who I think maybe he was even a little bit limited in game for those games against the Bucs and the Saints. So. I think the most promising thing outside of Nate Lamman, of course, is the fact that Bijan was a full participant on a Wednesday, which means that, all systems are go for him this week.
Yeah, that's huge. Love to see that. Yeah, and Tre'Shon, was there something else you wanted to add? Sorry.
I was just saying, we didn't really talk about D. Alford, but
yeah,
I guess that's the other one where, you hope that, everything goes good with the concussion protocol and whatnot. So that's really the only other person to watch, I think, at this point.
Yeah, no, I think it's obviously a good sign that he's already practicing. That's usually the later stages of the protocol. If they're able to return to practice, the extra days of rest always a good thing. You never want to rush a guy back from concussion. So the fact that he's able to practice already on Wednesday is a good sign for his availability. We'll just have to see how that progresses throughout the week. But that is a big one because, I was like, oh, maybe we'll see Antonio Hamilton. But I didn't want it, not like this,
I mean, you saw
Um,
Antonio Hamilton last
Yeah,
week.
it was not good. He did not look ready. Yeah, he did not look ready in the slightest. So,
It was not great.
no, he was not. He was very confused out there.
I appreciated him though. I'm like, that's a Falcon.
Yeah,
I'm like, that man is falconing right now, and
yeah, poor guy.
we're able to overcome it.
Well, it's like I don't remember him ever playing in the slot like anywhere else in his career too. So it's kind of like I thought it was a little bold of them to like make him their slot corner when like Clark Phillips basically played it for a large part of last year. It's like, you got Natrone Brooks also if you need like an emergency guy. Like, so they were like, oh yeah, Antonio Hamilton, yeah, you were a good outside corner last year. We're gonna make you play the slot as the backup. And okay,
Here's my cues.
Yeah.
He's decent in the run and he can tackle, but like he's not. He did a little bit of slot work in Arizona, but it was not. It's not as good as his outside work.
No, so slot corner, D. Alford actually started the game pretty strong. So it was that it's like it was looking like maybe he was gonna have a bounce back game. He's gonna have some tough matchups. So we'll hope that was a sign of things to come, and he's back healthy this week and able to crush it. But yeah, I mean, what a difference one game makes, right? With regards to this Bucs win, I think it seemed like the NFL as a whole was kind of cautiously like optimistic about the Falcons after the Saints win, but everyone was like, oh, well, the Falcons are just sort of, they pulled out all these miracles, they've just been kind of like mediocre. And that was true. Like, I mean, they were kind of just, they were like feisty, scrappy perhaps, but
Frisky. Very fun but frisky,
Yeah. And I think people like that, so that's not necessarily a problem, but I think the Bucs game was the game where like the Falcons actually answered the questions, and they still had to make it like a scrappy, sweaty game. And they obviously have shown a penchant now for being able to win those games. Like if you give the Falcons an opportunity to win those games, like it seems like they're going to win it more times than not, which that's a nice surprise. We haven't seen that a lot from the Falcons, but the Bucs win, I think, changed things where we've seen like, I don't put any stock really in like power rankings, but like if you look at the power rankings, the Falcons usually were like in the mid to late teens after the Saints win, which I think was pretty fair. Now it's like mammoth jumps. Now it's like 10, 11, 12, that range.
I saw them on 7, according to Bucky Brooks this week. Like,
wow.
7.
Yeah. That's a spicy take. Yeah, I would probably have them like right around 10 to 11 in that range. And like, I wouldn't really argue with them being like 10 to 15, I think is pretty fair. But yeah, I mean, Tre'Shon, we've had some time to digest this game. How are you feeling about this one? I think on rewatch, I actually thought the Falcons like pretty handily outplayed the Bucs in this one. They just didn't really take advantage of a lot of scoring opportunities, and like this could have been a blowout.
Yeah. It's kind of funny because that's been the case every game, but this is the one where they really just had way more hits than they did misses. And I think that's kind of like what we've been talking about is that, with Kirk and some of these passes in the first 4 games, it's like he's missing, and you really saw it in the Saints game, but he's just missing by a hair. And it just felt like with a little bit better timing, and if he starts just getting a little bit more comfortable, regaining some of his strength, he's going to start driving the ball. And I think that was just the biggest difference. We saw Kirk really throw the football with a lot more velocity than we had in any other game. The second touchdown to Darnell Mooney was just like, I didn't think he had that anymore. Like, I didn't think he had that one. Like, a couple of the deep balls and stuff like that, I think he's put those on tape, kind of, early on this year, but the laser and stuff like that, I wasn't really sure if that was still there. So that was great to see. I think we'll get into it later. The run game is something where it's just kind of like, tough sledding right now. We're not really running it a lot. We've really dropped in attempts, but it was Kirktober, and I think leaning on Kirk paid off. I don't know if we're going to be able to ask him to throw the football that many times throughout the year. Would like to preserve that arm a little bit. But yeah, I think when you look at how the defense performed in the second half, nothing really changed schematically. They just executed better. And I think that's really when you saw them start to pull away. And like you said, that's really when it started to look like they're just handedly beating this team now. And that was really good to see. Jesse Bates, I feel like it hasn't really been talked about enough, but like insanely clutch forced fumble. And I posted the all 22, and it's just like you see him doing the setup the whole time, waiting for it, and it was just perfect one punch. And he's just been so invaluable.
Yeah. I mean, Jesse Bates is just his contributions like don't even always show up on the stat sheet. He's just such a great leader. You could tell he commands so much respect. Him and Grady Jarrett, two guys that just, their leadership ability and what they bring are critical to this team. So we're just, that's the thing. Like, the defense isn't like loaded, but they do, like, I think the one thing that they did accomplish this year is they did add like star players at all three levels. They've got guys like Jared Onyemata and Judon in the front that, not all of them are necessarily playing to their peak at this stage. I think Onyemata is rounding into form. Judon's inconsistent, but he's had some critical plays, obviously. In that sort of mid-range, they've got, I think like we could be seeing maybe Troy Anderson like emerge as that type of guy this year. But I think Nate Lamman, when he's playing, obviously one of the best run defending linebackers in the NFL, one of the smartest linebackers in terms of his football IQ, that's been huge for this team. So hopefully he's back soon. But on the back end, they're just littered with guys now. They got Terrell's not having his best season, but still a very good corner, and obviously Bates and Simmons, and the real CB1, Mike Hughes, UCF legend Mike Hughes. So what a world we live in now. But yeah, the deep, this team is, I think that they're starting to get hot at the right time. And I think that's going to be key for the stretch of games that's coming up, which is they're not out of the hard part of the schedule yet. They still got a few more games to go through. But yeah, Adnan, how did sort of your feelings on this team, change after seeing them explode offensively for one, but just, beat their two biggest rivals at this stage?
Yeah, I mean, we were sitting here 1-2. I think it was like 1 a.m. by the time that post-game show against the Chiefs finally ended. And we were feeling okay about this team, right? It was, okay, we're 1-2. We expected to be 1-2. I think everyone came into the season like, all right, first three games are really difficult, and we're probably going to come out of there 1-2. Anything more is gravy. Just don't be winless. Just please, for the love of God, do not be 0-3. They almost were, but you know what? Almost doesn't matter. They won. They pulled out that Eagles game, but we said it won't matter them coming out of this stretch if they can't take care of business against these division rivals, especially at home.
Yeah.
Both the Bucs and the Panthers the Bucs and the Saints home games, and the Falcons went out. They took care of business. It wasn't pretty at times, but at the end of the day, all that matters is the win. It's the win-loss record. The Saints game especially was very, very ugly at some points, and the Falcons had some unorthodox ways of scoring, but it doesn't matter. You don't score an offensive touchdown, but again, I would rather, win a game in that way over losing a game with the offense exploding. And then you have this Thursday night game against the Bucs where, we've just been waiting for the offense to put everything together. And it just felt like it was some sort of a click on Thursday night. I don't know if that's, Kirk Cousins getting progressively healthier with each passing week. I don't know if it's, him establishing more trust with his receivers. I don't know if it's, Kyle Pitts waking up, but something happened where, the offense just, like you said, completely exploded. The difference between the offense on Sunday versus on Thursday, it was night and day. It was a full 180. And yeah, the Falcons completely outplayed the Bucs on that Thursday night game. It was eerily reminiscent of the game last year at home against the Buccaneers, where the Falcons absolutely beat them up and down the field. But at the end of the day, two missed field goals and a costly turnover near their own or inside their own like 10, which resulted in a safety. that ended up being the difference, them shooting themselves in the foot. And I was sort of thinking to myself, man, here we go again. Like, 2 field goals, one of them was blocked, one of them was missed. And it's like, are we really going to let them get away with beating us like this again? And, thankfully, by the skin of their teeth, they make it to overtime. Shout out to that spike. And I want to give some love to the referee on that play. I went back and watched a few times. He just maneuvered around everyone and just like touched the ball to like make it in play for the Falcons to spike it. That was a hell of a job by the referee. Like without him doing that, the clock expires. And shout out to Ryan Newsel. Ryan Newsel was hauling ass to get in position even before the throw was completed, I think. And he was in space, handed the ball to the ref, and he was ready to go as soon as he was ready to go while Darnell Mooney was still like getting up, I think. Yeah, fantastic execution. Falcons go out, score that touchdown. And yeah, the defensive players, I said it after they got Matthew Judon. Sometimes even if the defense isn't great, which, the Falcons defense is not great by any means, sometimes the main difference is just these star players making, star player type plays, like playmakers literally making plays. And that's what we saw in both of these games. And the Falcons won both of these games. You can pinpoint one singular play by a star player that completely changed the entire trajectory of the game. Sunday was Matthew Judon having that pressure on Derek Carr, which resulted in the pick 6 by Troy Anderson. And then Thursday, it was the punch out from Jesse Bates on Bucky Irving. And yeah, the Falcons did not score immediately after that, but the Falcons lose that game if Jesse Bates doesn't punch that ball away. The Bucs were in field goal range. Everything that happened after that will not happen if Bates, like the Bucs maybe run the clock down if Bates doesn't get that punch out. But yeah, shout out to the star players. Shout out to everyone for their execution. And yeah, it's not perfect right now. There are still some things to clean up, but at the end of the day, you just walked out of a 5-day stretch where you beat your 2 biggest division rivals and your 2 biggest challengers for this NFC South title. And yeah, damn right, it's time to buy in. Like, of course, the national media is buying in. Of course, we're buying in. It's the team has proven themselves worthy of the buy-in, and they will do so even more if they beat the Panthers on Sunday, which on paper should be the easiest game of the 3. But we've seen this story with the Falcons before, where it's sort of I'm with you, Kevin. It feels like a trap game just because, it's the lowly Carolina Panthers. You have an extra 3 days off. Everyone is singing your praises right now. And, I can't help but think of that 2018 game where they went up to Cleveland. I think they were 4-4. They had just beaten Washington on the road. Everyone's feeling good about themselves. This is back when the Browns were ass, by the way. These aren't like today's Browns or like the Baker Mayfield Browns that were making the playoffs. And the Browns absolutely beat the shit out of them up in Cleveland. So, it's up to the coaching staff. It's up to the veterans on this team to, get them right and to make sure that there's not a letdown because, man, this balloon's going to deflate if they come out of Carolina with a loss. But, if they win, you're 4-0, you're 4-2, 4-0 in the conference, 3-0 in the division, and you have navigated the waters of the NFC South gauntlet, undefeated, and that's all you can really ask for at this point.
Yeah, I think it's critical. Like, the Falcons, I think, showed their biggest flaw through the first 4 games was that their offense was just really, really inconsistent, especially with scoring touchdowns. So they go out and they score touchdowns. They throw for 500 yards. They do a great job. So they answer that biggest question. And I think that's why we've seen the power rankings jump, because I think national analysts and analysts in general were like, well, the Falcons defense is kind of pulling their weight. The stats don't look amazing, but the defense is keeping them in all these games, but the offense just isn't getting it done, or they're just doing barely enough to win. And then we finally see the offensive performance against the Bucs. You know, I would say the one outstanding thing is that we really haven't seen like both phases of the offense click at once now. Like early in the season, the run game was kind of carrying the load. But ever since that Philly game, the run game, and obviously, you know, coincidentally, the loss of Drew Dahlman and the loss of Caleb McGarry, the run game kind of took a nosedive. It really hasn't returned to form. Obviously, the efficiency has been pretty good, which is nice. They've just kind of gotten away from it in terms of the volume. I think the Falcons have they're 31st in carries in the run game, which I don't think anyone would have expected at this point. Like, the Falcons are not running the ball very much at all at this stage. So, you know, that is a little bit interesting, but you know, they need, to me, like one thing that I'm sure we'll talk about is like they need to diversify the run game, because it's exactly last year's run game, right? It's if Bijan's on the field and running the football, it's outside zone, and teams are just sitting on it. They're just sitting on it. Like it's I can't believe we're trying this again. And I know Joe Schmo in the chat has brought it up over and over again. He's like, I'm worried that with Dwayne Ledford still here and now the run game coordinator, that they're just going to run the same run game again. And that's kind of what we've seen so far. So I hope we can get past that. But before we, you know, get into sort of the minutia of that, I do want to talk about like the importance of this Panthers game. And to me, it's like, obviously it's a division game, so every division game's important. This is the most important tiebreaker. It's how you get to the playoffs. You know, if you sweep your division opponents, no matter how bad you do outside of that, you're probably still going to make the playoffs. I mean, you know, that's a huge part, you know, of your schedule and a big part of determining who's going to win this division. And this Panthers team, they're not very good, right? The Andy Dalton shine has faded. The red rifle is more like the rusty rifle now. And it's, you know, it's a little bit inconsistent with how it fires. Maybe it shoots you in the foot by mistake. You know, that's a very dangerous situation. Please make sure, you know, your firearms are well maintained. But the Panthers offense is not well maintained, and they have run the ball successfully. But the problem is the Panthers defense is the worst defense in the NFL, which I was really not expecting. I thought the offense would be a disaster again. But like, I didn't think the defense would be this bad. And obviously losing Derek Brown, like immediately, who's probably their best defensive player, that's going to be difficult to overcome. But it's been a barrage of injuries ever since. Obviously they traded Brian Burns, who was probably their next best defensive player. It's a bad situation in Carolina, and, you know, the Falcons they got to take care of business here. But, you know, getting started on this game, Tre'Shon, what do you think about this matchup? I mean, is there anything about this Panthers team that concerns you?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've touched on it a little bit earlier, but, you know, they have had success running the football. Chuba Hubbard right now is quietly having one of the better rushing performances league-wide. He's 5th in total yards with 393. He's doing that on 5.8 yards per carry, and he's only got the 15th most attempts. So it's not like he's getting this insane amount of volume or anything like that. He's just killing it. He's playing like it's contract year, because it is for him, and I don't think he wants to be in Carolina anymore. So he's got a pretty good incentive to perform well and get out of there. Robert Hunt, great offensive lineman, great guard that really is just there to play bully ball. He's going to move people. He's going to move Jarrett. He's going to move Onyemata, because they've been getting moved all season. So if this defensive line, if this interior doesn't show up, you know, the way they did in the second half against Tampa Bay, and the way that they should have been from the beginning of the season, then we're going to have a little bit of trouble with this run game. Hopefully, you know, we get Nate Lamman back, and he's able to take care of that. But, you know, I think just the fear of overlooking this team and getting a little bit of confidence kind of, you know, weighing on me as we get headed into this. Raheem's already spoken to that, saying that they're not going to be treating them like anybody else, which is like, you know, it's the NFL. They're professionals. They know that. But we've seen the Arthur Smith era, and we saw them come in and play down to competition consistently. And, you know, the December 17th Panthers game of last year is like the best example of that. You never would have imagined that you're losing that game in such an embarrassing fashion without being able to score a touchdown or anything like that. So I think that I'm just looking for them to go in and soundly beat this opponent. I think they can do that. I think they can do that regardless of whether or not they get Lamman or Anderson back. They just have to prove it. And it's kind of like we were saying, this is the game where it's like, no heroics, none of that. Like, go out there, play a sound football game from beginning to end, run the ball, throw the ball, stop the run, stop the pass, take care of business, because that's what a playoff team, is going to do and should do.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's like, Raheem is saying all the right things today, right? Oh yeah, we're not, there's no lack of preparation happening here. Like we're taking this seriously and all that. And it's easy to say that, but it's on the coaching staff to keep guys focused and keep guys from, really just buying in on themselves too much. Confidence is good, but like overconfidence, is a killer. So you got to tamp it down. Now I don't, it's like, I would hope you're not getting too like overconfident when you're 3-2. It's like, okay, we're a game over 500, maybe relax a little bit. But I would hope that's not a problem, but we're scarred here at the Falcoholic.
We were 3-2 last year. I mean,
yeah, that felt so fraudulent. We should talk about that. Like, I feel like this team feels completely different to last year. Like, I'm sorry, like that 3-2 felt so fraudulent to me. Like it, because they lost those 2 games, and it was just like, it was like the Chappelle skit. It was like, it's not even like it was close. It was a landslide victory for the other teams. It was like ugly. I mean,
13 points in those 2 games combined, and those were the 2 games where it's like, all right, these are probably the playoff teams. And they beat the Texans, which hindsight, that was
a miracle.
Shut out Will Anderson. Took care of CJ Stroud.
Like Ritter outplayed CJ Stroud, which was nuts. But that was Stroud before he really like became CJ Stroud last year, before he really came into his own. And then you beat the Panthers. The Packers were hurt all up and down the roster. So, and you barely won that game. But yeah, it was. It didn't feel as good as it did now, but yeah, I mean, we were sitting here last year like, well, we'll take anything we can get. It was 6 years of just below 500 up until that point.
Yeah, it was some ugly football, and that team just never felt like legit outside of like that 2-0 start was like, after that second win, it was like, okay, like maybe we got something here. And then after that, I don't think I felt good about that team again for the rest of the season. And like maybe the Houston game, I felt pretty good. And then like there was that one point where it's like, I think they had to beat the Bucs or they had to beat like somebody else in the NFC South, and they just like blew it. And then it was like, oh, it was like they kept getting to that point where it's like, well, if they just win this game, then they're going in the right direction. And it's like, nope, they lost it. It's like, oh yeah, we lost to Josh Dobbs again. I feel like Josh Dobbs beat us multiple times. So yeah,
they had that 3-game stretch of like games where they had no excuse losing a single one of them, and it was the Titans and Will Levis's like debut game, where Will Levis has never looked like that again.
That was his best career performance. That literally made him the starter this year, was that game. The
Titans signed over the franchise this offseason and based on that one game alone. Yeah. They lost to Dobbs, who had no practice with the Vikings, and I think they lost to the Cardinals, which was, I think, Kyler's first game back.
Yeah.
And the Cardinals were struggling that season too, but
once Kyler came back, they did get a lot better. But yeah, I mean, it was.
Yeah, I'm fine with losing to Kyler Murray. I'm like, I don't mind losing to franchise.
That's definitely the least egregious
that was
of
his
all
first
those.
game back. Like that was Kyler off his torn ACL. Like he wasn't even running like that. And I mean, they had it too. They just couldn't corral him at the end of the game. They couldn't corral Josh Dobbs either. But last year was last year.
We're over it clearly. So.
It's a new year. It's a new year. It's a new 3-2, and it's feels good. It's a great 3-2 right now.
Yeah, they weren't throwing for no 500 yards last year. Okay, like that hasn't happened, but once in history, 2016 to be exact. So I'm gonna go with this is the new 2016 season, and we're Super Bowl bound. No, we're not quite there yet. We got a ways to go, but
It won't take too much to convince me.
Adnan is he's ready to like
I'm
full face
waiting.
paint, like, everything. He's
waiting.
got it ready to go,
Look,
we've
the
all been
NFC
waiting. Yeah.
Look,
I-
the
I'm-
NFC this year does not look that scary.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Super Bowl yet, but the NFC
Yeah.
who in the NFC really scares you right now? Like, I'll give it to the Lions. I'm kind of scared of the Lions. Like, I think the Lions are a hell of a team, offense and defense. But outside of that, I do not believe that the Minnesota Vikings are as good as what their record shows. I think Sam Darnold's going to become a pumpkin event. I think he already became one against the Jets, but their defense was just good enough to hold on. I do not believe in the Vikings at all. Like, I'm sorry, people of Minnesota. I do not. I would not even be shocked if the Vikings missed the playoffs this year after starting 5-0. Yeah,
Defense
hot
is
take.
legit though.
The defense is the number one defense.
Like,
Yeah.
that
that
game's
would,
like Darnold could definitely fall apart, but I think the NFC is so bad, like you're saying, they could still
Right.
slip.
The defense
Yeah.
is legit, but I mean, we just because we saw it with the Vikings a few years ago too. Like they started off just like this, 5-0, and poor quarterback play that they fell apart. I'm not saying they will miss the playoffs. I'm just saying I'm not scared of the Vikings at all. The Niners, I would be scared of. If and when CMC comes back. The Packers. I mean,
Yeah.
Washington.
Ritter
we
beat
all
the
know-
Packers.
yeah.
Come on, what are we talking about?
Yeah,
It's a-
yeah. The Packers
Like,
are they're just a weird team.
They're really weird.
Cowboys.
Yeah.
eh,
The Cowboys are
man.
not very good. No,
was
the
way before the-
Commanders. Yeah, let's go. Let's go,
Nah,
Commanders.
man, just wait for that second half of that
Yep,
Cliff
Cliff
Kingsbury
Kingsbury.
offense. Just wait on it.
I
Every year.
know it's gonna hit. Yeah, it's gonna kill my fantasy team because I've been like, oh, Terry McLaurin's good now. My dynasty team's alive, and it's like, oh, I just know in December it's just gonna all fall.
They are
apart.
to
But
me what Sam Darnold is to Adnan. I'm
Yeah.
like, I'll never trust Cliff Kingsbury. I know it's coming.
Yep, it happens every time. His offenses look unstoppable for like 2 months, and then it's over. It's over after October. So we'll see if he can. Maybe he just needs to be a coordinator again. Maybe that's the secret. But
Well, look at us scouting out the NFC.
I know.
Talking about potential playoff, matchups and teams that scare us and teams that don't and teams we want to avoid. It does feel refreshing. There were some seasons where we were talking about the draft at this point.
Yep. Oh God. Yeah, we need to put off the draft talk as long as possible. It's been really early the last couple of years, no doubt about
Oh,
that.
it's been
But
way too early.
it's been way too early. But yeah, it basically, like, this game for me, this is like the trust fall game. Okay, like, I'm sitting here, I'm gonna fall backwards, Falcons. I need you to catch me. Okay, like, we're in this situation. All you got to do is beat the Panthers to start 3-0 in the division, and if you win this game, you will go no worse than 500 in the division. Which is like 6 weeks into the season. That's insane. It's like you've already secured at worst a 3-3 division record. You probably need to win like one more division game to like secure the like best divisional record. Maybe you could, I guess there's a chance you might need 5 wins, but
Our 5th division game is in week 10.
yeah,
We're gonna know a
we'll
lot.
know. Yeah,
Like,
Falcons could have
really
won the
soon.
division by week 10. So it's crazy, but this is a game that, like, if this team is different, if this team is a team to be believed in, it's a division game. Like, I'm not expecting them to just roll over the Panthers and like win by 30 points or something, but like, take care of business, get the dub. If you could make it like somewhat less sweaty, like if you could just have a comfortable like 10-point lead at the end, like just a hair over like a 1-score lead that we can kind of feel comfortable. That would be great. I'm expecting it to be a 1-score sweaty affair as always. Hopefully like a touchdown though, like we're not like trying to hang on with a field goal against the Panthers, but I to me it's like I need this team to like beat this Panthers team, and like they should thump this team. Like we need to thump the Panthers, get out, like finish the NFC South gauntlet 3-0, and then it's like, okay, like now I think we could trust this team to some extent. Like they took care of business against, they avoided the trap game. They beat their 2 biggest division rivals. They gave the Chiefs everything they could handle. They beat the Eagles in Philly. I mean, it's like, I don't know, like at that point, and especially if they can have another good offensive day against Carolina, like you're sort of seeing exactly what you want, which is this team is rounding into form. The offense is coming together. The team is gelling and getting better as the season goes on. You're 6 games in. You're 2 games above 500. Like, that's gravy. Like, that's exactly what you want. And you know, the Seahawks look a lot less threatening than they did a few weeks ago too. So like, you know, it's not out of the question that you could, you know, it looked a little bit dicey earlier in the season. Like, it's getting pretty hard with the Seahawks, and they do have a great offense. But
We're beating some fraud ass teams though. Like the Seahawks schedule was just cake to start.
Well, as you could see last week, like their offensive line is atrocious. I mean, the Giants shut down that offense because of how bad that offensive line was. Now the Falcons probably aren't going to be able to do that, but
Falcons have 5 sacks in 5 games so far.
Yep. So, you know, that's not great. But so there's 2 things that we need to see, right? One of them is that we need the pass rush to wake up, and the Panthers are down their center now. I think they lost another offensive lineman, Taylor Moton,
as well.
Yeah, Taylor Moton's probably their best
out for Sunday yet, but they lost him in the game.
Yeah, so Moton's their best offensive lineman, so if he's not there, that would be massive. They lost their center. You know, so now they're shuffling guys around, perhaps down two starting offensive linemen. So the pass rush like needs to like wake up at some point. You know, so this week would be great for that. And like everything that we've asked for on this program, they've like done the next week. It was like, we should probably see Rook Roro. Like, I'm tired of Continuous Street. There you go. Rook's playing, you know.
Someone's
like,
listening. Someone's watching.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, we need this passing game to take off. Like Kirk Cousins, you know, Kirktober, let's go. And it's like, all right, 500 yards. Here we go. So, you know, great stuff. So yeah, my ask this week would be like, we need to see that run game diversification happen, and we need to see this run game like take over, because I think the Falcons will want to just pound the rock this week. Like, this could be a big, you know, I think they could get out to a lead, and then this could be that Tyler Algier like game that we were hoping we'd see last year. Like, oh, this is perfect. Like, Bijan can come in, build the lead, and then Algier can just come and just like salt this game away and just pummel the opposition into the dust. This could be that game. Like, this could set up for that. But, you know, can we see it? Like, can they put this all together and get this big win? What do you think about that, Tre'Shon?
I mean, yeah, they can. They definitely can do it. We saw them, like you said, make a lot of adjustments on a short week. You know, we talked about it. We were like, yeah, we want to see Rook. We're kind of done with Street. Didn't think that move was going to happen on the short week. They did it. Talked about wanting to see Kyle Pitts get more vertical routes, start playing to his skill set a little bit more. We saw them do that. So I think Bijan is going to get an opportunity here. And the, you know, entire run game, I think that, you know, there's been a couple of things that have been happening. He's taken about 63% of his runs like in shotgun or pistol. So he's not getting many opportunities from under center. He's actually ranked 41st in lowest by percent rate in terms of under center runs. Algier is up in the mid-ish 40s and ranking at about 36th. So he's not getting great opportunities. He wants to run through the A gap. Of his 270 something yards, 177 are coming within the A gap. And we know we're running outside zone. So that tells you one thing. He's seeking it out. Like, the edge is getting blown up because they're sitting on outside zone every time he's up there. Bijan knows that's what's happening. He is bailing on it and having to cut inside. And he's making really good reads in terms of getting through that A gap when he needs to. And we just kind of need to see some more gap concepts implemented. They've sprinkled some in, but we're at like 82% zone to 18% gap. This is not nearly enough. They're only doing about 3 runs a game right now in terms of gap concept. So implement some down blocking, kick outs, get some pullers in there. Like, we've seen Bergeron do that before, and it looks terrifying. It seems like it works pretty well to get that big man going. We know Lindstrom can do it. So I think this is the team that, you know, this is the get right on the ground game. You know, they focused on the passing game. They got everything dialed in with Kirk last week, and now we're going to lean on the run a little bit more. And I think we'll get to see both Bijan and Tyler, you know, have a lot of success. And it's, again, these aren't complicated changes. Like, these are just small little tweaks that Robinson, you know, I think it's just part of learning and just being a first time OC, and we're watching him grow every week. So, you know, I don't I don't think that he's done growing at this stage. It seems
No.
like he's going to keep absorbing and getting better. So implement a little bit more concepts, and I think we'll be fine.
Yeah, I think they just need to diversify it because, it's just too predictable. Like when you see like the edges just crash every time on outside zone,
It's predictable.
And it is. It's too predictable. Like, and again, I don't know that it's like, I think a lot of people want to blame Bijan. I want to blame the offensive line. I don't even think the blocking has been that bad. It's just like it's not. The scheme is just not helping the run game. And like, again, this is one of those things where maybe, you need time to start fleshing out your offense. It's like, okay, let's start with what we know, right? This offensive line is really good at outside zone. This team knows how to run it. We're going to lean on that early while we get the passing game set up, because that's going to take some time. Now that the passing game is in a space that's good, maybe we could spend more time adding some new run concepts, maybe working in some more man gaps. So, like, if they can do that, then I think this offense can be really dangerous, because like last week, the Falcons just kind of went to the air, and it worked. It worked really well. Like,
yeah.
But it's just like adding that run game element that like all the pieces are there for this run game element to work. This is not a talent deficit situation. They just got to find a way to do it. And Adnan, what do you think about that? Is that, I know that's something you probably want to see as well in terms of the run game.
We ran into a wall with outside zone all of last season, and kind of lost our minds by the end of the year on it. And it's like, okay, this year we're gonna go into the season. And I remember, at training camp, the coaches, the running backs specifically talking about, we're gonna have essentially our like bread and butter plays, but we're also going to incorporate some real changeups in there. And so far, the Falcons aren't throwing any changeups. They're just going fastball, high heat every single time. And of course, that's going to be dangerous when the other team knows what you're doing. Tre'Shon touched on it. Bijan Robinson, 82% of his runs have been outside zone this year, by far the most in the league. The second place running back, I think, is in the 60s. So it's not even like a small gap. It's like, every time it's just Bijan outside zone. Last game, I saw the run chart, for Bijan Robinson. It was all just like this, like the entire thing. It's like, it's like the Red Sea splitting for Moses. It's just like this. And, Bijan Robinson can run on the inside. Like, he was really, really good at it in Texas. Like, Bijan Robinson, I'm with you. I would love to see some more runs on the inside. I would love to see, less predictability. And I think the more you change it up, the more successful the run game is, the more it's going to even help the passing game, because now you really have the defense off balance on play action schemes. So, yeah, absolutely. I would love for them, first play of the game, to just give Bijan, run on the inside. I'm not even asking for one of those play action Hail Marys that sometimes teams do to send a message. Send a message to us by handing it off to him and setting him up for the A gap. That will be that will be really nice.
Yeah, I think that would be great. And I do think like we're gonna see some of that. We'll see. We'll see how quickly it comes together. I just think that's the next step for this offense, is like we got to get this run game back. Because like the efficiency has been there a lot of times, but it's like they're not really like able to lean on it like they were early in the season. And I think that, that'll help their consistency. It'll help their ability to extend drives and all that stuff that they need to do at this stage. But all right, we did have a question from Noah that I forgot to get to earlier before we got into all this stuff. But this is another thing, because there has been a lot of rumors circulating, right, about trade deadlines coming, next month and all this stuff. Who would the Falcons be looking for? And a lot of people are like, well, they need another pass rusher, and like they do. But I know, Noah was asking specifically with the $2, thank you, Noah, about Hassan Reddick, obviously still holding out from the Jets. And, to me, it's like, I don't think the Falcons are going to trade for anyone that they have to immediately give a new contract to. I think the Falcons would be looking to trade for someone maybe like a 1-year rental guy. That I think that's kind of been their strategy this year, is that they're trying to collect a lot of these 1-year guys. They will probably re-sign some of these guys, but they'll probably be happy to let a lot of these guys walk and try to start accumulating some comp picks. I think that's, they're basing this off the Ravens model. They haven't really ever been able to do it. This is the first year I think they could actually be in line to start collecting some comp picks, maybe some significant ones depending on who they re-sign or not. But yeah, curious, Tre'Shon, Adnan, what do you guys think about Hassan Reddick coming here, or any other potential trade acquisitions in terms of edge rushers?
I mean, not Hassan Reddick. Like, I just feel like that ship has sailed. Like with the Matthew Judon trade, not because you can. It's bad to have too many pass rushers. Yeah, that's never bad to have too many pass rushers. Obviously, not a philosophy this team has followed, but I feel like it would sort of be a slap in the face to Matthew Judon if you bring in Hassan Reddick and give him a lucrative extension, and then you have Judon over here like what the hell? I came here, I said all the right things, and I'm not I wasn't rewarded for it. But yeah, it's also with Hassan Reddick, the issue that the Jets have now too is, even if he reports today, is he in game shape? Like, it's going to take some time for him to ramp up a bit. We see it all the time with guys who hold out training camp and report right before week 1. I mean, we saw it with Brandon Ayuk this year. I think we even saw it with CeeDee Lamb this year. It takes some time to get back into get back up to NFL game speed. It's not something that you can just like turn off and on. So even if you, in theory, get Hassan Reddick in the building today, he's not really going to start hitting his stride or really going to be, what he actually is on a football field for at least, 3 or 4 weeks. But yeah, it's not going to happen because of the contract. The Jets screwed up there. The Jets made their bed. I don't think anyone's really going to be eager to take them off their hands at this point.
Yeah. That man's been in Japan. He is not he is not in football shape right now. He has been chilling, walking around that beautiful
sushi,
country,
yeah.
eating great food.
As someone who recently came back from Japan, I also was not in football shape when I got back.
It's tough to maintain out there. So yeah, like Adnan said, there's just no way it's Hassan Reddick. And even if the other issue I think is that Hassan is like a pass rusher only, which is great. We need somebody who can rush the passer, but for the money he wants, he's one-dimensional. He's not going to help you in the run game at all. And with Judon being here, and you basically are like, hey man, like, thanks. Like, Matthew Judon playing on his deal, I didn't expect come at all. I kind of thought he was going to get some kind of raise or anything like that. So yeah, just kind of bringing in somebody like Hassan, who's out of shape, isn't going to do all of the dirty work that Judon is doing on top of rushing the passer, and is then going to get a massive extension. I don't think that would really sit right with like most of the locker room at this point. You're looking for guys that are, hungry, playing. If the Bengals keep slipping, who knows if Terry can pull some strings and get his boy Trey Hendrickson here. There is that connection. People talked about, over the summer, it was like he was complaining and he said he wanted out. Those talks quelled, and he's been playing and performing really well. I think getting anybody's honestly going to be a long shot. I don't think Terry wants to spend a lot of money. He's kind of walked around. We talked about it. He likes having some walking around money in case of injuries and other things like that he has to manage on the fly. And I think he's going to continue operating like that in the season. So I don't really see any big moves besides Reddick.
Yeah. I mean,
The
think
other
it's go ahead.
The other names that have been mentioned here, but have been hitting the timeline a lot. Which I'll be the buzzkill. I'll be the guy to put this down and be like, blame me for being the messenger here. Falcons are not trading for Devontae Adams.
No.
The Raiders won a second rounder for him. I don't think 33-year-old wide receiver. I don't think anyone's really going to spend the second. Maybe the Jets get desperate enough if Aaron Rodgers makes a call. They did just fire their head coach for him, so allegedly. Also, huge cap hit. The Falcons are not in play for Devontae Adams. The Browns are also not trading Myles Garrett. Like,
Oh no, yeah.
I would love it. I would back up the Brinks truck. I'd give the Browns whatever they were looking for, but the Browns are not trading Myles Garrett. Like, I don't care that they started out the season poorly. I don't care how bad the offense looks. He is literally their franchise player.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
No.
never letting him leave. Like, sorry, dude.
Yeah, never. If he became available, then absolutely, whatever you need to do to get him here, let's do it. And every other NFL team will be saying the same thing, which tells you that that's not going to happen. But yeah, I mean, we could. If anything, I would say like watch for some smaller moves potentially around the trade deadline. I think, and the Falcons could be sellers too. For some of these depth guys, especially on the interior, if teams really come calling. We'll see if anything materializes there. I wouldn't be like expecting anything necessarily, but yeah, on the Adams thing, it's like Falcons wide receivers are like the least of their concerns right now. It's like Drake London and Darnell Mooney are like catching 100 yards each. Kyle Pitts is doing great. Ray McLeod's perfectly good wide receiver 3, and Kadero Hodge is the hero. So
Shout
I don't
out
really,
Hodge.
yeah,
Big
I mean,
Kadero Hodge.
I don't really see a need. Like, personally, it's like I wouldn't trade for Devontae Adams even if I had the money and the resources, because I don't really think it's necessary. Obviously he would be like a boost to that receiver depth and like would probably be like, but it's like, are you really gonna the three guys that you have are working? Like, do you really want to like throw that off to add Devontae Adams? I don't think it's worth the investment for that upgrade at this point. Maybe we see a move for defensive line help or something like that. But maybe that sort of thing, probably more of a minor thing. But again, we'll have to see how it goes. We'll have to see how it goes. I'm not really expecting a huge move this year at the trade deadline. But again, if they like win out the rest of up until the trade deadline or something, and they're looking like they're a top team in the NFL, and they're like, okay, we need to go in, then yeah, sure, a lot can change. Like if they're looking really good and they're feeling like, okay, our window's open right now, like we need to go make a move to shore up our biggest weakness, which is probably the pass rush, and they like can get a deal done for somebody, then sure, like I wouldn't be upset with that at all. But I think it's probably good. Yeah, go ahead.
Other thing to consider, again, I'm not going to be very popular in this discussion right now because I'm not saying the Falcons are going to go out and get all your favorite players, but the other thing to consider, the Falcons are already down 2 draft picks. They're already down a 5th for the tampering charges. Thanks for Cousins, for admitting that in the press conference. And they are down a 3rd on the Matthew Judon trade. So yeah, the Falcons did make a trade for a pass rusher. It was just for Matthew Judon. I'm not. Again, I'm with you, Kevin. If the team looks like this is the year, the window is open, then go out and do what you need to do. But they are definitely going to take stock of the fact that they're already down some picks. And I know that last year there was, some trade talk about, bringing in Montez Sweat, which the Bears ended up winning those negotiations. But remember, last year the Falcons had extra draft picks. The Falcons had at least the extra 3rd rounder for Calvin Ridley, so they could sort of, play around with it. Play around in the trade market, maybe find something. But this year, yeah, they're down the picks. I'd be shocked if they made a huge move, outside of maybe spending or trading like a 6th rounder for someone, 6th or 7th rounder. I'd be hard pressed to see them move that second. And outside of that, it would be, you could easily sort of get beat out in a negotiation by another one of these teams that also thinks it's their year and they're going all in.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think they have to be a little bit more frugal with those picks because the cap is getting tighter, and they're not necessarily going to be able to spend as much or as freely, so they're going to need those draft picks. And next year's probably going to be that tighter year where we're not going to get as many new faces coming into the team. They're going to have to lean more on what they've drafted. Hopefully, we're going to see some of the payoffs of this year's class, right? Like, like Rook, to his credit, like Rook only played like 15 snaps, but like he did like good stuff on a lot of those snaps. Like had a couple of key run stops, played some goal
good
line.
in the run.
Yeah. So like I think Rook's gonna play a lot more because they need his run defending. But like Dorless too. Like hopefully Braylon Trice is able to come back healthy. He should have plenty of time to recover. They'll need him for sure. But like yeah, they're gonna be down a couple picks. The idea is hopefully like if the guys you can't re-sign, maybe you're able to collect a couple of good comp picks, like a third, a fourth, maybe something like that. And then you're starting to stack up more picks, which you can then either use those or trade those or whatever. And then you get into that Ravens cycle where you've got all this young talent coming in. So you're letting more veterans walk and all that. That's the ideal situation long-term, but we got a long way to go before you actually see that. Because again, the comp picks lag a year behind. So like they could be collecting comp picks next year, but they're not going to see them until 2026. So, it's going to be a minute before we see that strategy pay off, but long-term, viable way to do things. But yeah, big game. Perhaps not the closest or the most dramatic game. I certainly hope it's not that dramatic. But as long as they get the win, ultimately we'll be okay. We could really use that big dub. But it's critical. And I think they got a great chance, obviously, to do it and get this going in a big way in the right direction here once again. But yeah, any final thoughts, Tre'Shon, before we sign off tonight?
I mean, I don't know. It just kind of feels like we've talked about. It's just really it's really nice to be in this kind of position again as a viewer of the Falcons, as somebody that has viewed them for their entire life. This is kind of nice. You kind of forget what these moments feel like. So just kind of knowing that they really have a chance to go up 4-2, 4-0 in the NFC, 3-0 in the division. And then, like we said, they are going to they're playing their 5th division game by week 10. This is kind of a big week, this is a big game. So I think we could be in for another fun afternoon, not trying to get ahead of myself on a Wednesday, but it would just be really nice to go out there and see this team kind of perform the way that we know that it can. And kind of just sink all of those opportunities when they're put out in front of them.
Yeah, I agree. We need to see this team take care of business, but I think if they can, we'll be feeling pretty confident and feeling like, yeah, maybe this team does deserve some trust. Maybe it does, just a little bit. It's going to take a while to earn that trust fully, Falcons, but this is going to go a long way. Okay. You don't blow it against the Panthers. I'm going to be feeling a lot more confident going forward. Not anything else you want to add before we take off tonight?
Yeah, please don't take the Panthers lightly. Like I know it's been 10 days. Team's gotten some days off. They feel good about themselves. The Falcons and Panthers have split 4 straight years. No matter how bad the Panthers have seen the past few years, they always beat the Falcons, in one game somewhere, most of the time in Carolina. Falcons have lost in Carolina each of the last 2 years. The city feels amazing right now. Like there is nothing that can hype a city up more in America than its NFL team, doing well. Like, no offense to the other sports. I love the other sports, but it's just something different when it's your NFL team that's just kicking ass. And, right now Atlanta feels it. It was absolutely a party after the Bucs game on Thursday night. It's been a party ever since then. And, we really want these good vibes to continue rolling because this city has been waiting for it for a very, very long time. Like I've been chasing that feeling that I had in the 2016 playoffs for so long. And, I'm feeling that like maybe this is the year where I can finally catch Moby Dick in that regard. But, of course, all of that's going to be deflated if they come out and lose to the Panthers on Sunday. For the love of God, please don't lose.
Please don't. There's so much goodwill. Like, can we just not Please don't stab us in the back. Like, please don't do
lose
this.
to the Panthers, and we'll be sitting here post game like, God damn it! They got us again. They
we just take the mask off. It's Arthur Smith again or something. Oh, Raheem, let's see who you really are. Oh, it's just Arthur Smith again. But yeah, no, we need just beat the Panthers. Okay, how much more exposition do we need about that? Please beat the Panthers. And thank you all for joining us. All the fans of the chat, Nico, Corey, Joe, MTK, we love you guys. Thank you guys so much. Every week is a razor's edge between happiness and depression. That's absolutely spot on, Joe. Thank you. So hopefully we can stay on the side of happiness this week. That would be great. But yeah, big game Sunday coming up. Important divisional game. Hopefully the Falcons take care of business, get that big dub. Thank you guys for watching. Please do like, subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thanks again to Bet Online for sponsoring tonight's episode. Check out the Patreon if you want to support the show. Check out the channel memberships if you're also looking to support the show on YouTube. We appreciate all of it. Leave a comment after the show on the channel. It helps us grow. Try to respond to those as well. Yeah, check out thefalcoholic.com for that great written content. And then I'm working on maybe getting a Panthers guest for the game preview coming out Friday. We'll see if we can make it work. But if not, of course, you could just hear me talk about the game, which probably why you're here anyway. But it's nice to get some good guests from time to time, just get some other teams' perspective. So we'll always be trying to get you guys the best guests possible. But in the meantime, enjoy your Wednesday evening. We will see you guys in a couple days, and then again on Sunday for the first 1 o'clock game since week 1.
Well,
right?
It's a 4 o'clock game. It's a 4:20.
Oh,
kickoff.
It's a 4 o'clock. It's not even a 1 o'clock. Wow. Okay. So yeah. So we just avoid the 1 o'clock game once again. So crazy stuff. But
the team will have had 2 1 o'clock games in the first 6 weeks. That's nuts. Last year they were all 1 o'clock games.
Yeah, that's right. Well, what was the other one? Because it was
Saints.
the Saints. The Saints. That's right. That was a Sunday game. Yeah, I was like, wait. Yeah. So yeah, it's odd. Crazy stuff. But thank you guys so much. I'm Kevin Knight at Falcoholic. Kevin, thanks again to Adnan, Ikic at Say Which Way, and of course Tre'Shon at Trade3Sean. We will see you guys real soon here on the Falcoholic Live. Until next time, guys, have a great night. See ya.